Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the live edition on this Monday of Foul Territory. That is AJ Pierzynski. Below me is Erik Kratz. I am Alanna Rizzo, sitting in for Scott Braun. Good to be with you guys today. Don't forget to subscribe. Tweet us at FT Live. Buy merch at foulterritoryshop.com. Happy to be with you boys today on this January 19th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Of course, we're all here to celebrate the life, the legacy of the great Martin Luther King Jr. The time is always right to do what is right. The Washington Nationals, of course, tweeting earlier, Kansas City Royals. Today we remember and honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. How are you boys doing today? AJ, what's up?
I'm freezing, first of all. It's like 56 degrees in Florida, and it's freezing. So that's why I have a long sleeve shirt on. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day to everybody. What he said is right. It's always a great day to do what's right. So he's right. But yeah, I wish it was a little bit warmer. But hey, good weekend. Had some things happen in baseball, and now we get to talk about it for a couple hours.
Yeah, some things happening in baseball, some things happening in football too. Erik Kratz, you and I know a little bit about being cold. We're in the Northeast, and it is, 5, 6, 7 inches of snow here. So I don't think AJ has anything to complain about, Erik.
I love snow. Sorry. If somebody complains about snow, it's totally fine. Give it all to me. I hope we have the biggest storm, the most snow all this winter. I love running my snowblower. It makes me feel like a man when I get to be out there just launching snow, shoveling snow, pushing people down the sled, throwing a snowball, hitting somebody. I love that stuff.
There you go. Well, you might get your wish because it's supposed to be super bitter cold all week, and we might get a nor'easter coming up. All right, guys, let's get to some baseball news. Good to be with you for the next couple of hours here on Foul Territory. Time to charge the mound.
Charging the mound.
Let's talk a little bit of Cody Bellinger, shall we, boys? Because this is something that's been going on for quite some time, obviously, in this offseason. The big domino of Kyle Tucker has fallen, but the Yankees apparently have been willing to include opt-outs, AJ, after year 2 and year 3 of a 5-year, $160 million reported offer to Cody Bellinger, a league source telling The Athletic. What do you think is the holdup between the Yankees and Belly, or just Belly signing anywhere?
Well, I think he's still looking for the longer-term deal, kind of like what we thought Kyle Tucker would get, kind of like what we thought Bo Bichette would get. Instead, they got shorter terms, higher AAV. He's looking for the longer-term deal with the high AAV, and right now it doesn't seem like any team is willing to go there. I feel like the Yankees need him more than any other team for his versatility, for his athleticism, for being left-handed, to hit in the middle of that order wherever they hit him at. And I don't know what's taking so long, but maybe there's another offer out there that we don't know about, but if this is his best offer, I give the Yankees credit for this. They're not getting in a bidding war with themselves. They're like, hey, Cody, listen, if you have a real other offer that's better, we gave you our best offer. If it's not good enough, then we're going to have to say sayonara. So I do give the Yankees credit for that they're not bidding against themselves and allowing the price to get driven up if they're the only ones bidding.
Yeah, it was supposedly reported that Cody Bellinger was looking for upwards of $200 million, $250 million, something like that. Yankees have made an internal decision, guys, as AJ was just talking about, not to engage in a bidding war for Bellinger if the Mets or anyone else swoops in with the blowaway offer. Yankees believe they've made a fair proposal. 5 years, $160 million, 2 opt-outs. They are prepared to let Bellinger walk. Erik, if he walks and decides not to return to the Bronx, what's the next step for him? What's the likely suitor?
For him, I think you mentioned it. I think the Mets, I think if teams are looking to say, hey, we'll go another short-term type of deal, it really comes down to a few teams. Are the Reds willing to hop in there? Are we know that they were willing to spend some money. Are they going to go higher than 160? They wouldn't go higher than 150 with Schwarber, but this is a much more versatile, younger player. So are they willing to go higher? That's why it's hard for me to say that a guy like Cody Bellinger doesn't have a lot of suitors, but we just haven't heard it. Are the Blue Jays willing to pivot because they're going to lose their center fielder next year with Dalton Varsho going to free agency? Then they'd be able to shift, and they're losing George Springer after this year too. Like, you'd be able to have Cody as your backup. They went after Tucker. How do they see him? They saw him a lot in the East already. I don't know. I commend the Yankees for maybe adding some pieces to a contract that they didn't want to do. But I think the opt-outs, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like Cody's been on that opt-out train for like the last 3 seasons. And it sounds like he's just like, no, I want to spend 7 years somewhere, 6 years somewhere. And maybe the 5 years isn't quite enough. And good for the Yankees for standing still. But I'm more concerned if they don't get him, where do they go? That's where I'm concerned for the Yankees. Less like, I think Cody's going to have a job. Cody's going to have a really nice job with a lot of monies behind his name. But where do the Yankees go if they don't get him?
That's a good question, AJ. Where do you think they do go? Where do they pivot if the Yankees don't Cody Bellinger? Obviously, Kyle Tucker is off the market. There's not a lot of really great outfielders left, obviously via free agency. And I don't know what type of trade that would look like either.
Well, they count on Jason Dominguez. They count maybe on Spencer Jones to step up, but I don't know what they do. That's what I'm saying. Is the Yankees need Bellinger maybe more than any other team. That's why it's so interesting they haven't got this done. I don't know where I don't know where they go because most of the definitely the biggest name free agents are gone. I'm going to look at some other free agents right now, but I don't know what their move is that they could go to have the impact that Cody Bellinger would have on this team at the moment. And it's a pretty short list of especially left-handed hitters. Michael Conforto, they're not going to go after. Jesse Winker. Where do they go? There isn't, unless they make a trade that we don't know about, there's not really that guy out there that makes an impact the way that Cody Bellinger will do.
When you guys look at the contracts and you talk about the opt-outs, and you were talking about how the Yankees were willing to kind of change their own contract to give an opt-out after year 2, year 3, does that mean that the player is just not committed to the team? What do you make of opt-outs? I mean, is this just something that is like he wants to play someplace for 7 years? Who's to say that he's going to get 2 years from now another contract that keeps him someplace for 5 years?
We're speculating he wants to play somewhere for 7 years. I think he wants a 7-year contract. But the opt-outs are cool. The opt-outs are not, I don't know. I've never looked at opt-outs like, man, this guy's not committed at all. There's no, he just wants to get the most money. Yeah, yes, players want to get the most money when they're in free agency. But to me, I think it helps them. If he wants 7, the Yankees say 5. He says, okay, well, what happens if, I go off and have another MVP season? Is that possible? Hey, he was a 5-WAR player last year. Like he could do something like that. Is it likely? No, because he plays on Aaron Judge's team, and Aaron Judge will always be the MVP. But if you have a season where he can opt out, yeah, it gives him that possibility of flexibility. Like he didn't do it with the Cubs. He opted in to his last 2 years at $20 million a year or whatever it was. I think he signed 3 years, $60 million, and he opted in because he didn't have a good season. So I think it's just something added. I just don't know if that moves the needle for Cody because in 2 years, he'll be 32. He'll actually be starting the season. He'll be starting the season at 32. No, at 33 at that point, at the next season. So it's like, is that what he wants? I have no idea.
AJ, do you get the sense that it doesn't seem like they had a plan B, a backup plan, like it was going to be Belly or nothing? Because like we just talked about, I'm not sure where you go from here. It doesn't seem like there's anybody else that could be an outfielder for them that's going to pack the same type of punch that Cody Bellinger did. I mean, did they assume he was going to come back?
I think it was like Alex Bregman in the Red Sox. I mean, the Red Sox pivoted and got some other stuff done, but I think Yankee fans have just always assumed, Cody Bellinger is going to be back. And the fact that it hasn't happened yet is kind of amazing to me. It might happen today. It might happen tomorrow. It might not happen at all. But yes, do they have a backup plan? I'm sure Brian Cashman and the Yankees have some sort of backup plan. But I don't know what it is unless they have a trade cooking somewhere to find an impact bat that can hit left-handed. And I don't know who that candidate would be, but maybe they have something in the works for something like that. But I like the opt-outs. For me, if I was a player, I'd want the opt-outs because I have some power. Like, listen, I know I have $150 million in the bank. If I have bad 2 years, that money's still there. But if I have 2 great years, I can take another free agent opt-out and I can go into the free agent market and say, guys, I'm still only 31, 32. Give me 3 years again at a high AAV because the opt-outs are the one way that they give power actually to the player. Because like with the mutual options, the team hardly ever picks those up, or the player never picks those up, or a club option or a player option or whatever it is. Clubs don't like giving player options. They like club options where they have all the power. So an opt-out is one of the few ways where players actually have power and can control where they are.
Yeah, certainly motivates the player when they have that opt-out. Let me ask you this, Erik, we'll start with you. If the Blue Jays wanted Kyle Tucker, and obviously they didn't get him, why wouldn't they want Belly?
I think Belly's, is he going to play outfield for the entirety of a 7-year contract? Kyle Tucker is 2.5 years younger than Cody. He's going to play outfield for the majority of that contract in a younger age. I guess, they have first base locked up. So is Cody going to be able to play? If they give him 7, would he be able to play center field for 7 years after Varsho leaves after this year? I don't know. Maybe they don't see his bat being as impactful as Tucker's. I think Tucker's bat is more impactful, but I think Cody Bellinger fits into what the Blue Jays do. I think he has the ability to cut down his strikeouts. You've seen it in different seasons where he's made a concerted effort to say, okay, I'm not striking out. His defense is still elite when you're moving him around, center field, left field. Sure, he can play right field if that's what they're looking for. He can play first base. Like, he has that, but Vladdy's playing first base. So maybe they don't see the entirety of the package as valuable as what they offered Tucker. But right now, if it's at 160 with the Yankees, it's half. 175 would be half of what they offered for Tucker, and it wouldn't be as many years. So I don't see why, but those were some of the examples of why maybe they wouldn't be in on them.
Yeah. AJ, do you think that that Belly would be a good fit in Toronto?
He would, because he's left-handed. He can play multiple positions for you. Why they're not after him, I don't know. Maybe the front office there, Atkins and Shapiro just said, you know what? We liked Tucker and we don't like Bellinger. Who knows? We don't know what these teams' models they have, what they are. Maybe Cody Bellinger made someone mad along the way, or I don't know. Not saying that happened. I don't know why wouldn't they be? I think they should be, but maybe they're not. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe they see something in his game playing against them all these times in the AL East the last couple of years. I don't know, but it would make sense. But it's also like when the Reds didn't sign Kyle Schwarber, they didn't take that $300 million and try to sign someone else. They just said, oh, well, that money went away miraculously. But it was there for one player. Maybe it was only there for Tucker and not for Bellinger. I don't know what owners, front offices think. I don't know why they wouldn't be, but it seems like they're not.
Yeah, it's insane, too. You think same thing with the Red Sox. You don't sign Alex Bregman. It's not like they turned right around. And, first of all, they get rid of Devers to supposedly extend Bregman. Then they don't extend Bregman, and they don't turn around and sign, like, a massive player, too. Springer and Varsho, guys, free agents after this season. Cody Bellinger not going to be involved in a bidding war, apparently, with the New York Yankees. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, much more to come here on Foul Territory. We are going to be joined by Jim Bowden coming up after the break. We'll be right back. All right, time now for Front Office Unfiltered. We welcome in once again Jim Bowden, who, of course, does a great job. MLB analyst, insider, CBS Sports, The Athletic, MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM, the man of many hats. Very, very busy. All right, Jim, good to be with you as always. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Ha-Seong Kim's injury on the Braves. He's expected to be out 4 to 5 months. They're replacing him with Jorge Mateo. What more do you make of this? It's a tough break for the Braves.
Obviously, Alanna, it's a big setback there for the Braves. They committed $20 million on a one-year contract to Kim to solve shortstop. They were very excited about that being the last missing piece of how they kind of viewed their team. And so obviously he has this injury, he's going to be out for months. And so for now, Mauricio Dubon will be the starting shortstop, at least initially. That yes, they did sign Jorge Mateo to a 1-year, $1 million deal to give them some infield depth. He's got a lot of speed, can play a few positions. So that's how they're going to at least go into spring training. But we all have seen the Braves president, Alex Anthopoulos. We know how aggressive he can be. And so, look, I think he'll look at his team during the spring. They'll make a decision if they think Dubon can carry the load for the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks of the season, whatever it's going to be. And if not, we know what he'll do, right? He'll call Cleveland, or he'll call Detroit, or he'll look for another option at shortstop to bridge the gap until Kim gets back. But obviously a setback for Atlanta, not the way you want to start spring training.
Is there a situation where, as a GM, you would go, okay, this is the date that it makes it too late for us to be like, okay, now we're going to make a move, in the sense that he possibly could be coming back mid to late May, depending on how he heals from the injury. If it were July at this point, would you go, no, we need to fill this role with a true, proven big league shortstop and not a stopgap?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if it's going to be a half a season, I need to get another option. And then when Kim comes back, okay, I've got depth. I think because it's probably going to be 6 to 8 weeks, I can get by. But that being said, every GM is going to look for a better option than the option you have right now, regardless of who it is. I'm not picking on Mauricio Dubon, who's a very good extra player, but that's what he is. He's a guy that you like to fill in for a couple of weeks rather than a couple of months. And so, I think if you're Alex, you're going to keep looking out there, see what kind of options are out there on the trade front during the spring. And if you can pick up a better shortstop, someone in between Dubon and Kim, you're going to try to do that.
Jim, it sucks for the Braves. We just talked about Cody Bellinger. Have you heard anything on Cody Bellinger, on what his free agent? I mean, we've heard all the stories. The Yankees don't have bidding war. They've made their best offer. Who else is out there? And what would the Yankees possibly do if they lost Cody Bellinger?
Yeah, they don't have a panic pivot like the Mets did, right? I mean, when the Mets lost out on Tucker, they did the panic pivot and they overpaid Bo Bichette by $17 million a year, right? That option is not going to be out there for the New York Yankees. So if the Yankees lose out on Bellinger, Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones, they're going to get their shot. They're going to get to compete in spring training, and one of them is going to be the starting left fielder of the New York Yankees come opening day. That's clearly the plan that New York has right now. But I still think it's likely that Bellinger goes back. He's been offered 5 years, $160 million with opt-outs after years 2 and 3. My understanding is the Yankees are willing to give a huge signing bonus as well. I think the offer that the Yankees have on the table is astronomical, especially when you look at his 6-year history. His history isn't like Alonso and Schwarber where it's clean. He's had good years, he's had bad years, been inconsistent. So I think this is a very good offer. Now, I understand that Scott Boras and the Boras Corporation and Cody would prefer a 7-year deal. So would everybody else. Schwarber would have liked that too, so would have Pete Alonso. But the market is what it is. I do not believe there's a team in baseball that has offered Cody Bellinger 7 years. I don't think that's out there. I don't think he's had an offer of 6 years. I could be wrong. And the one thing we know about the Boras Corporation, if the offer's out there, he'll take it. He won't be afraid to take that offer because he'd love to be able to go back to the Yankees and say, you wouldn't go 7, I found 7. He loves doing that. That being said, I don't believe the Mets are in outside of a short-term AAV on him. Toronto is not in on him. The Dodgers are not in on him. I don't know, honestly, of another team right now besides the 2 New York teams that are in on Bellinger.
Looking at how the team's constructed and the fact that they made a big push for Tucker, and I think Bellinger's way more versatile than Tucker. Why are the Blue Jays not in on Cody Bellinger, do you think?
I think it's the risk with how he's going to age with the swing. I think it's the risk of, we saw him fail in Chicago, and a year ago the Cubs had to eat part of the contract in order to trade him to the Yankees. They had to eat it. The Dodgers, he struggled there a couple of years. They moved on from him. I think that, Mark Shapiro, the president of the Blue Jays, Ross Atkins, the GM, looking at his history and saying, what is the risk? If we were to sign him long-term, what's the risk? I think, quite frankly, the Blue Jays kind of view Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger similar the way I do. I would have been fine giving Kyle Tucker 10 years, 350 like the Blue Jays offered. I kind of feel like Bellinger's not that kind of player for me. I think there's too much risk. Now, I love him defensively. He can play all three outfield positions above average. He can play first base above average. I love the power. I loved his MVP season with the Dodgers. I loved this season last year with the Yankees. I loved one of his seasons with the Cubs. But where was the rest? And I know we're blaming injuries and we're blaming the pandemic, but other players didn't have that problem of lack of consistency. And I don't want to get stuck on a 7, 8, 9, 10-year deal on a player that I don't think I can count on producing most of those years.
Jim, let's pivot now to pitching. Not a lot going on, at least it doesn't seem very public, going on with Framber Valdez. How is he still out there, and where do you see a landing spot for him?
Yeah, I think Octagon has done a really good job of keeping the negotiations of Valdez quiet, nothing leaking. I actually like it. I think it's good for Framber, to be honest. The reason he's still out there is I think when free agency started, they were looking for a 6 or 7 year deal for him. He's not going to get that. He's 32 years old. I'm not sure he's going to get year 5. I think he will get 4 years. But, the offers haven't been there like expected. And so when those long-term deals aren't there, the agents these days have to take a deep breath and then figure out, okay, how short of a deal can I get? What do the opt-out clauses look like? Am I okay doing a 2-year deal, opting out and going back in the market next year when I'm not tied to draft pick compensation? You've got to be creative and try to figure out the best way to handle this. Now, I know the Orioles have been in on Framber Valdez the whole time. I've heard the Mets had interest if it was a shorter term deal. I'm not sure if Framber is there yet. But besides that, I've not heard Framber's name connected. I think the Giants should be all over him, but I've heard they're not because they don't want to spend that kind of money towards pitching. So, besides that, I can't tell you. I still think the best spot for him right now is the Orioles or the Mets. I think both teams need him if they want us to cover that team in October, either one of them.
What's hurting his market more? The draft pick compensation? Because I felt like that was, more the $50, $60 million range, and he's clearly a 9-figure type of pitcher. Or is it the fact that a guy like Freddy Peralta, who everybody probably views as a better pitcher than him right now, is still technically out there?
Yeah, I think everything factors in, right? I think being 32 years old factors in. I think there are some analytic groups that don't like the hard hit rate against Framber, although it's mostly ground balls, and it doesn't worry me as long as you have a really good defensive infield. I think some people are looking at him and saying, he used to be a 1, now he's a 2. And so I want to pay 2 prices, not 1 price. So I think all of those things kind of factor in. What are the other options that are out there on the market? That being said, he's a difference maker. I think he could take a pretender and make them into a contender. So I think he'll find a home, but I think we're going to find out it's going to be one of those shorter term, high AAV with opt-outs.
Jim, we just saw Ranger Suarez sign with the Red Sox. Have the Red Sox done enough this offseason? Because that, Bregman was kind of the guy they thought. They flipped and they went Sonny Gray. They went Ranger Suarez. They obviously have Garrett Crochet. The back end of the bullpen, they brought back Chapman. Do they have enough offense to win this division with the way they've lined it up with their pitching as strong as it is?
AJ, my opinion is they need a second baseman or third baseman. They need one more bat. Obviously, they wanted to bring Bregman back. They weren't going to play Bichette at the kind of numbers Bichette ended up with. So I think that a player like Eugenio Suarez makes sense for them if they can get him on a shorter term deal. Power plays in that ballpark. He can hit 6th or 7th in the lineup and hit that occasional 3-run homer. I think that makes sense. Circling back to Arizona to see if there's another way to trade for Ketel Marte is something that makes sense for them as well. I know at some point they'll have Marcelo Meyer back. They like him very much, but I think they need one more bat, whether it be at second base or third base.
You've mentioned the Mets twice with shorter term, higher AAV. What is that line for the Mets in the sense that they're just going to, okay, we're going to stick with it. But at some point, they're going to look up and go, daggone it, we're paying everybody $40 million a year. I get it. We're rolling over like, USC football. We just roll over every player every other year in NIL money. But what is that line? What is that line for the Mets?
Yeah, so for Steve Cohen, he has unlimited money. He's the wealthiest owner in baseball. And look, if he wants to take losses, he writes a check and he can write it off against his hedge funds. So I think he just do whatever he wants. I mean, we've heard the stories about him seeing a piece of art for $20 million and he decides he wants it. He writes a check and it goes in front of his house. He's doing the same thing with baseball players. And look, I wish, in my years as a GM, I wish I had an owner that was willing to just give me a checkbook and say, go spend whatever you want. And $47 million for Bo Bichette. My goodness gracious. But they got the player, which was great. It was a great panic pivot, I thought. And he was wondering what color smoke it was. When he found out it was Dodger blue, he went, okay, I'll go get Bichette then.
Wow. Yeah. Uncle Stevie, he nails it. All right, so let's go to one of your old teams. You have a picture of the guy over your shoulder. Elly De La Cruz allegedly was offered the highest extension of all time, right, for any Reds player, and he hasn't accepted it yet. First of all, do you think he should? And when you're as a front office member approached a player, did you already think that, hey, man, this guy's going to accept this and save us money and also set his family up? What's the deal with the Elly extension?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Nick Kroll and the Reds did the right thing by offering him over $250 million and said, look, we want you here. We want you to spend your career in Cincinnati. I think you have to try to make that effort, whether it works or doesn't work. When you're represented by the Boras Corporation and you're a position player and you're young and you have analysts telling people that he has the talent to be a future Hall of Famer, really tough to do a long-term deal because Scott Boras' long history is he will beat it on the open market. And I know when the Nationals offered Juan Soto $450 million, he turned it down and everybody laughed. And he ended up 3 years later getting $765 million. So he made an extra $365 million by saying no. Elly De La Cruz is going to do the same thing. So I understand it. And, it's pretty painful for a small market team like Cincinnati. I think for them to have a chance to sign him right now, you have to probably start the conversation at $350 million. To start the conversation to get it serious, I'm not sure Cincinnati is going to do that in the marketplace. So again, this is a talented kid. He hasn't reached his potential yet. We keep waiting for that breakout year, which I think may happen as soon as this year. It's going to be fun to watch, but keep in mind, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Reds in this marketplace when you're seeing the kind of contracts. Kyle Tucker gets $60 million a year. Bo Bichette gets $47 million a year. Shohei Ohtani gets $70 million a year. It's really hard to try to do these deals like the Braves did once with Ronald Acuna Jr. because these young superstars seeing this kind of money out there, it just doesn't make sense to give up the kind of hundreds of millions you'll be giving up if you sign now.
Jim, what did the Reds do? I mean, you said they probably need to start at $350 million. I mean, is there a certain point where they're like, what is the point? Because we know that he's going to go to free agency and there's not a dollar figure that we can do right now to extend it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to be realistic in these small to middle markets. If we're not going to do a salary floor and a cap, if we're not going to let half of baseball compete for a world championship, if we've decided we're not going to do that as a sport, which is okay if that's what they want to do, then if you're the Reds, you have to do what Tampa Bay does and Miami does and everybody else does. You've got to enjoy your first 4 years with the player, and then you've got to call the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets and the Phillies and the Red Sox and see what you can get for De La Cruz, and at some point trade him. You don't want to wait to the last year. You want to do it with at least 2 years left so you get the most return you possibly can, but that's going to be the reality if we don't fix this system.
Is he good enough for the 350 potential? Yes. But really a lot of his analytic numbers are propped up by his stolen bases. I get it. He had the torn quad and the second half was abysmal. First half was looking MVP-ish if there wasn't a Shohei Ohtani in the league. But are his numbers, based on the fact that his walk rate is what it is and his strikeout rate is astronomical, is he what do you feel like his value is based on how he has done, not what he could do?
Well, that's a great question. I think the value is probably pretty close to what the Reds offered him, which is why they tried to get it done at $250 million range. I think that's probably, when you look at it, that would make sense on a 10-year deal right now. Yeah, the potential is that, by the time he gets to the open market, he could be somewhere between Kyle Tucker and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think that's realistic, but he's not there yet, and you've got to see the development. So, yeah, I mean, and there's lots of risk in this. And remember, $350 million today is going to be $600 million when he gets to free agency in 5 years, based on history.
Jim, we mentioned Schwarber buying Schwarber and the Reds, and they had $300 million to try to give him. Where did that money go? Like, I know they tried to get it to Elly, and listen, it's a great PR move also by the Reds. Let's not forget that. And Scott Boras has never had a client turn down a $100 million offer and then not gotten him more. So a position player. So that's why one of the reasons why you said that he won't accept it is because he has a history of getting him way more, like you said. So, but where did that money go for the Reds? The Reds say, hey, we offered Elly the highest extension ever. Oh, he didn't take it. We tried. It's a great move, especially they just had Reds Fest this weekend. I mean, everyone's like, well, now they're like, Elly, take the offer, right? But where did the $300 million they had for Schwarber go? And they said, oh, it was just for that one player. Where does it go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, AJ. I asked the same thing of the Reds, as soon as they lost out on Schwarber, before the Orioles quickly signed Alonso. I was at the winter meetings, and I texted the Reds, and I said, why not just pivot and go get Alonso right now? Like, immediately. Just take the same money you had for Schwarber and put for Alonso. The way they viewed Schwarber's intangibles were such an exception. They felt like what he would bring to their clubhouse and locker room was such a difference maker that they wanted to extend for him. They didn't view other players on the open market similarly. And so that was their view, but it ended up being the intangibles there. Do they have money if they needed to commit $30 million to a player? The answer to that is yes. They haven't done it. I think if the right player were to come along, I think they would go back to the well and try to do that. But to do Schwarber, they weren't really going to add to their budget. They were just going to take their budget and, instead of spreading it out among 2 or 3 players, give it to Schwarber. And remember this about the Reds, and try not to smile or laugh. They paid Nick Martinez $20 million last year to be a 6th starter and long reliever. They gave him the qualifying offer and accepted it. So they were taking Nick Martinez's 20 to put towards Schwarber.
I want to ask you if you think that the way that the free agents or players are looking at things now, Jim, has shifted from back in the day when you would take the guaranteed money as a young player versus what these, the high end of these free agency contracts are now. I mean, the eyes, I would imagine, are really big with something like an Elly De La Cruz, seeing what some of these contracts have amounted to. Has that shifted and changed the dynamic of how these young players are going about it?
No, absolutely. If I'm a young player and I'm looking at the marketplace, I mean, I don't even have to play into my mid or late 30s anymore. If you're going to pay me $60 to $70 million a year, just give me 5 years in my prime, and I'll have enough money if I want to retire or do something else. And doing long-term deals, we're seeing a lot of players that did the long-term deals, and those players are losing out. It's just the way it is. I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Guerrero came up the same time. One guy's getting paid $500 million. The other player's not getting paid, relatively speaking. So I think when you continually watch who does better, I think the young players, with advice from the agents, are saying, we're better off waiting unless somebody wants to overpay. And that's why in Elly De La Cruz, all he has to do is look at Juan Soto and look at Guerrero and say, do I want to get that result, or do I want to get what Acuna ended up getting in Atlanta? It makes it pretty easy to make that decision.
Jim, Hall of Fame voting tomorrow. Who do you think gets in?
Well, Carlos Beltran's going to get in, so that's great news for him. I mean, what an incredible career he had. But the guy that I've been pushing all these years that hasn't gotten in is Andrew Jones. And I'm just praying he gets in. It's going to be close. I think it could go either way based on what I'm hearing in terms of the voting. But Andrew Jones was the best defensive center fielder I've ever seen in my life, and it's not close. And I asked the late Frank Robinson, who was a manager for me when I was the GM of the Washington Nationals. I asked Frank, who is the greatest defensive center fielder you ever saw? And he said, Andrew Jones is 1A and Willie Mays is 1B. And by the way, Andrew Jones has one less home run than Carlos Beltran. Both of these players deserve to get in. I hope tomorrow we can celebrate both center fielders. And by the way, I hope all the people that voted, I hope they spent the time to ask John Schuerholz, Bobby Cox, John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, Chipper Jones, David Justice, Fred McGriff, and any other Atlanta Brave that watched him play. I hope they spent the time to ask the visiting managers and GMs that were in the National League during the 10 years that Andrew Jones won 10 consecutive Gold Glove awards. I hope they asked those people if Andrew Jones is a Hall of Famer, because all of them would say yes. And it's a shame he isn't already in. But you know what? As long as he gets in this year, it'll be okay. So hopefully the voters did the right thing. And hopefully tomorrow on Foul Territory, you guys will be announcing Beltran and Andrew Jones.
I hope so, Jim. I got to play with Andrew, and he was a great guy. He's fun. Do you think, I have two questions on Andrew Jones. One, do you think that the end of his career hurt him, and that's why it's taken so long? Because he was so spectacular for those 10 years, and then he kind of just fell off a cliff, and I played with him at the end with the White Sox, and he was a shell of himself with their injuries. Do you think that hurt him? And then my next argument is, look at Torrey Hunter's numbers. How come he's not getting more love? He has, I think, 9 Gold Gloves instead of 10, right? And he has a lot of numbers that are better in a lot of other categories, except for, I think home runs, he's like few behind. But other than that, they're all similar. But Torrey gets no love, and he was the best center fielder that I ever saw on a consistent basis. Obviously, I'm biased because I played with him in the minor leagues and came up with him, but he gets like no love, and his numbers are across the board very similar to what Andrew Jones did.
Yeah, so in terms of Andrew Jones, absolutely. His career, once he left Atlanta, whether it was Dodgers, White Sox, Yankees, hurt his career. And he kept playing, right? There was like a 5-year period after that. He had 10 years where he was a Hall of Famer. And then he absolutely fell off, and that was it. And I think those 5 years hurt him. I think a lot of the young writers that joined later saw those 5 years, and that's what's in their mind, unfortunately. I think the analytic and stat people end up looking at all the statistics, whereas if you just look at the 10 years in Atlanta, a 10-year period, there is no doubt he was a Hall of Fame player, and I believe that he should be voted based on that. With Torrey Hunter, I can't give you the right answer, to be honest, because I spent practically my entire career in the National League, and those were all the games that I saw in person. I certainly love watching Torrey Hunter on the screen. I don't disagree with the stats and numbers that you're throwing out there. Just for me, I like the people that vote on the guys that saw him with their own eyeballs during that same time period. And my 17 years as a GM, all 17 were in National League ballparks. And so I don't feel that I can give a good opinion on Torrey Hunter like I can on the guys that were playing in the National League.
Jim, as always, we appreciate the insight. Look forward to seeing who gets in tomorrow. We'll be right back. We thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Nobody likes a bloated cell phone bill. It can consume you. It can take over. It can be very annoying. So I know that 2025 ended Kratz, and that's when you have your end of year sales, but there actually is still one sale that is running until the end of the month.
Mint Mobile. They still have their 50% off their unlimited premium wireless offer that you got to go and get and take advantage of, because it's not necessarily going to be around all the time.
And all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Quit overspending on wireless with 50% off unlimited premium wireless. Plans start at $15 a month at mintmobile.com/territory. That's mintmobile.com/territory. Limited time offer. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
Show me the money.
Show me the money! Show me the money!
Never gets old seeing that. All right, we talked about it, guys, with Jim Bowden about Elly De La Cruz's offer. It would have been the biggest extension in Reds history. It would have eclipsed Joey Votto's contract. Obviously, Joey Votto, when you think of the Reds, you think of him. What do you make of it? I mean, obviously, with the player, you want him to be able to get the most money possible. Your thoughts? I mean, are you surprised, AJ, that he didn't take it?
No, not with Scott Boras. I just told you the stats. Scott Boras has never had a position player offered over $100 million extension before he got to free agency and take it, and he's also never gotten him less money. So I don't know how he could go to Elly De La Cruz and say, take this, even if it was for 10 years, $250 million. Listen, I know Elly, that's life-changing money for everybody, right? But if Scott Boras is telling, look, Elly, we can get you $400 or $500 million, like Jim Bowden just said, I'm not surprised he didn't take it. Players are getting smarter. Agents are getting smarter with the way the system works. And I just think that there's an opportunity for him 5 years from now, 4 years from now, whatever it is that he becomes to get close to that free agent line, he can get so much more money. And like I said, I love this move by the Reds, though. They're like, hey, we offered it to him. If he didn't take it, that's on him. So now all the fans are like, Elly, you should have taken the money, right? So I love the move by the Reds. I understand the move from Elly De La Cruz and Scott Boras. We'll see how it works out.
Erik, I remember one time Yasmani Grandal told in a conversation in the clubhouse one time that take as much money as you can for as long as you can. So I certainly don't fault a player for wanting to get the bag as big as he can get it. But what happens if Elly De La Cruz gets hurt, right? Like what happens if something happens to him? I mean, I understand he's not a free agent until after the 2029 season. It is a lot of what ifs, but $250 million is a lot of money. What do you make of it?
It is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for you and I. But Elly's a one percenter. Like he obviously has a team backing him, and this is why you need an agent. This is why you need an agent to say things that give you, less of a macro view and more of a, hey, this is how it's worked out for different guys. This is the skill set. This is where they were their first 2.5 seasons in the big leagues. I think it's a gamble. Obviously, it's a gamble. But what I usually tell people now is position players, tell me what that injury is. Show me an example of somebody having an injury that says that was a career-ending injury. Nowadays, I feel like in the last 10 or 15 years, pitchers, you hear the shoulder and you're like, it just didn't quite come back. Command didn't come back. Velocity didn't come back. Whatever it was. Tommy John, obviously, some guys are getting Tommy John and people are like, great, he's going to be better when he gets back. We got 6 years till the next one. They've really kind of narrowed that down. But for position players, to me, the only way there's an injury that would affect Elly is kind of the same reason that I'm like, maybe he could have taken this contract because of the fact that right now, a lot of his value is propped up by his 67 stolen bases. And I think he's going to get better at stealing bases. So I think that value's there. That doesn't age well. If your value is propped up based on stolen bases, then what is going to be your value later in free agency? Because we see guys like Carl Crawford, lost his stolen bases. Jacoby Ellsbury wasn't stealing as many bases. Trey Turner has aged very well with stolen bases, but you have to have some type of value there. And I think another year of maturing with his hitting, another year, his power's there, but is he going to be a 30 home run guy or a 25 home run guy? And that's when you say, okay, see what this guy's getting, see what Vladdy's getting. Well, he's not as good as Vladdy. He doesn't have the hit tool as much as Vladdy does. So I think comparing him is really tough, especially if you think those stolen bases are going to go away or be diminished like it was this year when he had a quad pull.
You look at some of the other offers given to guys kind of in the similar markets that Elly De La Cruz is, AJ. You think about Bobby Witt Jr. signing an 11-year, $288.8 million extension. Corbin Carroll, 8-year, $100 million extension. Julio Rodriguez, 12 years, basically $210 million. That can potentially escalate to $470 million over a 17-year span. I mean, he's got to be paying, obviously, with Scott Boras as his agent, or any agent that's doing, is worth their salt. He's got to be paying attention to this type of stuff. And being a genuine five-tool player, I would imagine, thinking, the sky's the limit for me. I don't have to sign this right now.
No, but I'll throw this out there. When was Acuna, Albies,
right,
these guys, Corbin Carroll, I'll even use Bobby Witt, I'll use, Julio's can be gigantic, obviously, but there was no Juan Soto signing. Aaron Judge hadn't signed when some of those guys signed, right? Vlad hadn't signed yet. These contracts are now on the book, okay? So now Mike Trout had the huge one, but everyone's like, well, Mike Trout's on a different level. He's the best player in baseball. So now all these other signings have happened, and so these guys are all offered extensions, and they all said no. So now they look at it and say, well, heck, if I just have my normal years, even we can use Bo Bichette, we can use Kyle Tucker for the money they just got. And they're like, well, I can get to free agency, sign a deal with opt-outs, and make a bunch of money in 1 year, Alex Bregman, and then go the next year and make more money with no draft pick compensation. I think the market has changed because of the way that the system has been played. Now, who knows what the system's going to be after the CBA? And if Jim Bowden gets his wish, we're going to have a salary cap and a floor because, he says it every time he comes on our show, which makes me laugh that that's what he wants so badly. But the way they play the system now is wait. Don't take these extensions. That's why the Roman Anthony one, when he signed it last year, people were like, whoa, maybe he should have waited. But he didn't. He got his money. And when it's done, he'll be richer than all of us. So good job.
Yeah, and he'll have an opportunity to sign another huge deal based on signing the one that he did now. All right, much more to come. We're going to talk about the Reds, of course, with Trent Rosecrans coming up right after this. He joins us.
Battle up.
Trent is here with us today again. We appreciate you being here. Trent, good to see you. A lot of talk, of course, about what the Reds are doing with Elly De La Cruz. I want to know your take on it. I mean, you cover this team better than anybody with The Athletic. Are you surprised, I guess, that he didn't take the deal? And on the flip side of that, at least, hey, the Reds offered, right? That's all they can do?
Yeah, I mean, I think nobody's surprised inside because the Reds have to make that attempt, right? And they also, if you're being honest, you don't expect him to take it because this is a guy who could be, and I mean, a lot of things have to go right, and this is down the road a little bit. He could be a billion-dollar player, and I just don't know if you give up on that. Now, there are a lot of things that you have to take in consideration. We talk about the guys, the Ronald Acuña's, Bobby Witt Jr. You also have on the other side, you have Scott Kingery and guys like that. So it's not a sure thing, but I think Elly and his representation believe in him enough that it just seems like you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Not that I would love to figure out the difference between having $250 million and $350 million. But that's not in the cards for me. I don't think we got to I have to renegotiate my Riverfront Territory contract to get anywhere near that.
Okay, that's fair. I appreciate you putting that out there. But where, how can you rank Elly in the names that you brought up? Are you?
Well, there's still potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those guys. Was Bobby Witt? Bobby Witt wasn't Bobby Witt when he signed that. He had just signed it. I remember us going to Kansas City in 2000. Was it 24? Elly's first year or 23? I'm blanking because it's all runs together when you're old. AJ knows about that. You not as much, Kratzy. But so people going, oh, we were in Kansas City, and they're like, this is what Bobby Witt was supposed to be, and I was like, this guy's still pretty good, and then he kind of had that second season. Everybody has their own timeline, but the potential is just, I mean, the potential there is greater than anyone, to be honest. And even if he's just what he is now, if you just say, "Oh, all we have is an all-star shortstop," I mean, that's pretty good.
By the way, I know you went to Georgia, and it's hard for you to do math because there is no requirements to get in there or to graduate from there. But the difference between 250 and 350 million is about 100 million. So I know you would like to figure that out. But
I don't have your contract. So, like, to me, they're both a lot. And
they are a lot.
Between a lot and a lot,
but
and a little less lot is a.
I got told
quite
this.
A bit.
I got told this by an owner one time. I'm like, well, what's the difference between a 1.9 billion and 2 billion? And he looks at me and goes, 100 million. And I'm like, when you get to that amount, does it matter? And he's like, absolutely. So maybe it does matter.
Does to them.
I'm never going to see that money either. So I don't know. Trent, but I'm just saying,
I'll
Georgia
talk to
math
Scott
doesn't
Braun
matter.
for you.
Okay, perfect.
I'll talk to Scott and we'll get working on your 100 million difference addition.
Perfect. What's the feeling of the fans in Cincinnati with this? Because we mentioned they lost on Schwarber and they offered them 300. Now they've come out and said they offered Elly this contract. What are the Reds fans feeling and thinking? They just had Reds Fest this weekend. Where are they at?
I think we've heard about Elly since he came up. They're like, oh, it's just going to suck when he's a Dodger, as opposed to, holy crap, we got this guy for a while. I think there's still some trepidation. Some take it as like defeatist, and some are just like, well, you know what? We're getting this guy through his age 27 season. We might be getting the best of him. And I think there's something to be said for that.
What is the pivot for the Reds fans, in the sense that I think AJ alluded to it, but the money that they had out there for Schwarber, the money that they have for Elly, does this just all of a sudden go, okay, we're quiet now.
Well,
we're not gonna use any of that. Sorry, everybody else.
I mean, a lot of that money, a ton of the Schwarber money was going to be deferred. The Elly money is future money, and that's hard to explain. You get a lot of it in the sausage making when you're talking about this kind of stuff, but it will. I think it does turn fans off. You see a lot of fans just going, "Oh, I can't wait for a lockout." I could wait for a lockout. I do not want one, because as much as Jim Bowden and everybody else says they want a salary cap, I just don't see it. The MLBPA is actually, has a backbone, unlike some others, and they don't want it, and they're not going to give up on this, and as well they shouldn't. To me, these owners who write these big checks, they write them because they don't bounce. They have it. AJ might want to give somebody 300 million, and if he writes the check, he's got it. So it's up to him to do it.
Can the Reds afford the floor? Can they afford to get up to the floor? Because why don't they? I mean, now?
They're at 125 now. The floor is not going to be more than that. What do you think the floor would be? 100?
Oh, it would have to be a much closer. Like, if everyone's like, oh man, everybody's, look at the other sports. It's a much closer. It's not going to be 290 million to 125. They can't do that. So they have to be able to me, we're not going to debate the salary cap or no salary cap.
I think they would, but they'll be
close. How close? Sorry, we froze there for a little bit. How close do you think the Reds think they are to being a consistent playoff team? I know they made the playoffs last year. The Reds they gave them their ticket to the Mets gave the Reds their ticket to the playoffs, but how close do they think they are? To me, I feel like the Reds underachieved last year based on how I feel about this position player lineup. And maybe it's all potential, but what we just talked about, Elly's $300+ million that he should get is all potential. So how close do the Reds truly think they are?
I think they feel like they can compete over the next couple of years, and what they have to do is learn from their mistakes. Remember the Reds of the early 2010s, 2010 to 2013. Well, when they were doing that, you got to go all in for this window, they gave up in trades like 50 future WAR. in guys like Yasmani Grandal, Yonder Alonso, Mike Leake, Brad Boxberger. They gave up a lot to supplement. And so you'll hear all the time people go like, well, this is their chance. You should go all in. Well, when you go all in, if you don't win the pot, you're out. And that happened to them for a good 6 years. And that is what I think would really hurt the team. So you have to be smart. Like, I mean, the Brewers, look at what the Brewers have done. They identify who they need and what they need. And, you know, as much as they hated to see some guys go, they keep chugging along. And that's because they do develop and they don't trade from their surplus to get the shiny object to what makes sense to everybody else.
Okay. Then what's the untouchables for the Reds? If we're going to keep going down this, who are the untouchables? Sal Stewart? Is he's
Elly De La
untouchable? Elly De La Cruz. And then who's the prospects?
Hunter Green.
But Hunter Green's supposed to be on the trade. Remember, all we heard all winter was Hunter Green's on the market.
Where did you hear it? Where did you hear it from?
I don't know.
You didn't hear it from me. Yeah, you didn't hear it from me. And that's what I'm going to say. Because I've never believed that. And it just never made sense. I think, you know, of Chase Burns, maybe untouchable. Prospect-wise, you know, it's funny, like, because there's always the public list and the private list. I think they're much higher on a guy like Hector Rodriguez than the industry is. Alfredo Duno, that's an untouchable right now. That guy is a beast. He's a catcher, 20 years old, had more walks and strikeouts. Just like and they have some guys, but you always need the depth. And I think where they have their depth right now is in starting pitching. And you almost need 10 starters these days. And for a team like the Reds, the only way to get starting pitching is to develop it or acquire it young. Because if I'm a free agent pitcher, or there's no way I'm coming here.
Fair.
Trent, do you think the Reds, you just mentioned it. I want to expand on this a little bit. The Reds, the only way they get good starting pitching is by developing it. I mean, it seems like a Freddy Peralta signing for the Reds could be something that would make sense. I mean, anybody can sign Freddy Peralta. No, I mean, it's what, $1,000. I mean, he's at $8 million. I mean, that's not something that anybody can afford. I mean, is that the only way that they're going to get decent starting pitching is from within?
Well, I think they have it right now. I mean, right now you look at it and you have a top of Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott, Brady Singer for one more year. Chase Petty is a good young pitcher, had his ups and downs. Rhett Lauder, Chase Burns, Brandon Williamson is coming back. Aguiar is coming back. Both of those guys from TJ. They have some other guys in the system they like. I think that's what they're going to do. And it's not saying, you know, oh, we have 5 starters even if we trade Hunter Green to get whatever. 5 starters, like 2012, the Reds used 5 starters for 161 games. I don't expect that again. And nobody does. Nobody should. Like they used 12 last year. You almost need like 9, and you need 4 or 5 of those guys to have options. And so that means the young guys that you don't trade away.
All right. You don't need to trade for him. Obviously, the starting staff is there. What is, in your opinion, Trent, the biggest need for the Reds right now?
They just need somebody in the lineup, whether internally it comes, and that's a hell of a gamble when you're gambling on guys growing and getting better. They need a guy who, besides Elly De La Cruz, that people game plan for, right? They don't have that guy right now. Could it be Sal Stewart? I think so. I mean, this guy can hit. Could it be Matt McLain? I'm a huge believer in Matt McLain. You know, he came off the shoulder injury, had that whole year that he was out, and then that next year, those shoulders, we've seen it time and time again that it takes a while. I think he's a really good ball player. Noelvi Marte, watch Noelvi Marte. Now that he knows he's just going to be in the outfield and can just hit. They have guys who can do it, But you would feel a lot better if you had a Kyle Schwarber. Now, would you feel better if you had a Kyle Schwarber 4 years down the line that is taking up half your payroll? That's the big question. So, maybe they didn't there, and one of these guys develops. But that's a lot of finger crossing, and finger crossing isn't quite a strategy. I've tried it. It doesn't work much.
Were you able to get a pulse at Reds Fest of Reds fans? Were you able to get a pulse of the sense that they're all happy? Oh, wow, that's so amazing. We made this Elly move, compared to other years. Because don't forget, Reds fans might need to not forget, they were in the playoffs last year. Yes.
I think some are forgetting that.
But
but the team that beat them, they were pretty good.
Right. They lost to the Dodgers.
Yeah, they lost to the Dodgers. You know who else lost to the Dodgers? Everybody. So, I think their fan base is, it's not a monolith. I think there's a lot of people who are frustrated that they didn't get the big bat. Then there's other ones who are just cautiously optimistic, and they see okay, you know what? We had kind of that step back in 24, but if we could really capitalize on what we saw in 23 and it comes to fruition, I think there's a lot of guarded optimism for the relative short term, but then the economics, the game, everything, there's pessimism for that because, baseball small markets. And you look at it, and not only are the Reds a small market, their primary owner is, basically, if you're looking at his payroll, it's like me and AJ. The rest of the baseball are really rich, like AJ. And then the Reds are like me. They're yeah, we're in the game, but come on. He is if you look at the estimated net worth, he's by far the poorest owner. I would love to be poor like that, but it's all relative. If you, I don't need to explain that to AJ because
Trent,
he skipped a lot of good classes.
Hey, Trent, I once stayed at his hotel that he used to have out in Arizona, the Sanctuary, for spring training. So I contributed to the Reds payroll. So the Reds fans should thank me. I stayed there for a whole spring training.
It's a hell of a place. He sold it.
I know. It was. Yeah, I actually met him one night in the restaurant in there. So, but yeah, it was a hell of a restaurant.
That's a good restaurant.
It was. You're right. So
Sanctuary. Go for it.
Yes. Great place.
They let me in once.
We're gonna go there when we're gonna get Foul Territory to pony up for Alanna and I to stay there when we go out to spring training.
Sounds good.
Seems like you need some side hustles, Trent. Supplement that income somehow. Great to be with you as always. We look forward to reading all your stuff on The Athletic. And of course, you can catch Trent on our Foul Territory Network. On Riverfront Territory, he and Danny Graves will be right back with Hot Corner. All right, welcome you back to Hot Corner as the hour number 2 starts here on Foul Territory. AJ Pierzynski, Erik Kratz, Alanna Rizzo in for Scott Braun. Okay, let's talk about the fact that, and I'm not just doing this because I'm on the show. This was in the rundown before I was hosting, so I don't want to hear it, Erik. Don't hate on the Dodgers for perfecting an imperfect system. Tyler Kepner wrote something in the New York Times recently about, you know what? They're doing a good job of spending money, obviously, but we've talked about it at length, AJ. Other teams can do it, so why aren't they?
I don't hate the Dodgers at all. If I'm a player, I love it. And it's a destination place, and they get all the money you can because no one complains when the Mets go out and sign Bo Bichette. They didn't.
Right.
No one was like, oh, no, the Mets are ruining baseball. It's just because the Dodgers have won, and they figured it out, and they have great leadership, and they have unbelievable talent. And they also figured out a way to draft guys that are not in the top because they lose all their draft picks every year, and they still have players, marching through their system that they can use. So they've done a lot of great things. What they have done is they've reinvested the money not only in players that they make, in infrastructure, in development, in talent, in finding talent, and finding ways to win on the margins. You get a great president of baseball ops and Andrew Friedman. You get Brandon Gomes, and then you give them money. This is what you can get. And they go out and make these deals now. A lot of them are deferred, and everyone's saying, oh, it's deferred money. Why? Look how many people have deferred contracts, okay? The Orioles are paying Chris Davis for like 15 more years on that contract. It's all deferred, okay? The Dodgers aren't the only one that does it. It's just because they win that people are mad.
Erik, what do you make of this? Tyler Kepner continues in the article that the Dodgers have adapted by de-emphasizing the regular season and building such a deep roster that they basically cannot miss the playoffs. I believe that because I do believe the Dodgers are built for October. It's almost as if they assume that they're going to get there, and they're just worried about making sure that roster gets them to that point.
I think they've done a great job. I think whether they set out to make their starting rotation 10 pitchers deep, no, I don't think they started out by doing that, because I think they sat there and they won the World Series in 24 with just a bullpen. Then they go, we don't want to do that again. That was risky. They were almost eliminated by the Padres. So I think they then set out and they were like, okay, what is the depth that we need? Obviously, Roki didn't want to go anywhere else, so that added another piece of depth. I think they've perfected it in so many different ways. But the part I want to hit on is what AJ said. So many teams don't want to sign players. One, people will say, oh, well, they don't have money. And I spent an entire weekend getting roasted on Twitter for congratulating the Dodgers for what they did, which I think was awesome, not just for them, but I think it raises the competition level. But I got roasted for that, so I won't go that way. To me, it's what AJ said about the draft. All these teams. We just talked about Framber Valdez. That draft pick compensation, it's tied to them. You know, they don't want to sign somebody because it's draft pick compensation. Like, they're losing so many of their picks because, one, they're finishing in first place, so they're picking way late in the draft. Two, they're signing some of these free agents. And you have to remember, not everybody that they've signed was this massive Shohei deal. Shohei's just the best player on the planet, and he wanted to go where he was going to be taken care of. But all these draft picks that they lose, they're still creating an incredible minor league system. So is that because they have all the money? Is that because they're buying all their prospects? No, they're doing it to supplement a big league team that, yes, the TV deal that, you know, happened with the McCourts and all that stuff. Yes, they're able to pocket extra money, all that stuff. I get it. But there's an advantage to what the Dodgers are doing that is not just in free agency, but now it's coming to fruition in free agency because they made that push for certain players, a certain culture, and they've been able to back it with depth from their minor leagues and back it with the fact that they've been able to go get pitchers. I mean, they traded for Tyler Glasnow. The rest of the league said, you know what? Tyler Glasnow is a injury-prone pitcher. Obvious. He threw in the postseason for him. So, like, there's things that they're doing that other teams can do. They just have a larger margin for error with it.
And I want to give credit to the Toronto Blue Jays, who have had a very good offseason, AJ, and they are spending money, and it's good to see. And they were a strike away from winning the World Series last year. Obviously, Game 7 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So good on them.
Away. They were like this far away.
Yeah, like a couple of inches away.
IKF gets a bigger lead,
times.
they win.
There you have it. But that's the thing.
Dropping the ball.
And that's what I always say, that, you know, spending money guarantees that you get good players. Spending money typically guarantees that you have a postseason berth or you have an opportunity to play in the postseason. But spending money does not guarantee championships. But the Toronto Blue Jays are starting to spend some real money here. Are they kind of taking a page out of the Dodgers book where they too, AJ, are building for the postseason?
Well, they learned last year how deep their starting rotation was. Look at it. With all the guys that they used, they traded for Bieber when he was hurt. They had Scherzer, Gosman, the Savage came up. They used all these guys. Lauer was a factor for them during the regular season. Then they got to the postseason and said, okay, we can throw Bassett in the bullpen, right? And he was great for him out of the bullpen. Every day, Louis Varland was out there chucking 100 miles an hour every day. They built depth, right? And that's what the Blue Jays, that's what other teams are learning from the Dodgers is, it's cool to have 5 starters, but it's way cooler to have 10 starters that you can count on because you can use them in different roles and use them to do different things. The Dodgers have done that. Now other teams are following suit. It's a copycat league. So now other teams are like, man, if we have 10 starters, look at all this things we can do. And if we believe we're good enough to get to the postseason, then they can help us make a run deep into the postseason. So, yeah, I think what the Blue Jays are doing is awesome because you know what they did? They made a crap load of money in the postseason by going to Game 7, and they're reinvesting it back into their team. They just they've done a new spring training site in Dunedin. They've redone the locker rooms in the Rogers Center. They've done all these things, and then they get the results, and then they throw the money back into the product. It's awesome by the Blue Jays ownership.
Mm-hmm.
We roasted. I roasted the Blue Jays more because of what Ross Atkins did or did not do. Shapiro did or did not do to bolster a team that I felt like should have been in the playoffs the last few years. Now you see what came to fruition. But what AJ said about the minor league system, they made those changes. I was drafted in 2002 by the Blue Jays. They redid their minor league complex in 2002. My last year in baseball was 2020. They were redoing their minor league complex. There's still some minor league complexes that have not changed since the day I was drafted. And the Blue Jays, yes, they made the World Series. Yes, they were inches away, strike away several times in Game 7. But that started years before. That started because they're trying to build that infrastructure, which, if you're saying we want to emulate the Dodgers, yes, they're spending this year. Yes, they've been spending. They got George Springer. They put in money into Vladimir Guerrero, all that stuff. But it happens in that infrastructure years back. I remember when I was playing in AAA, I've said this before, we'd come into a clubhouse that the Dodgers AAA team just left, and they're like bringing all the candy bars back out. They're bringing out all the like unhealthy food. I'm like, why are you guys bringing all this in? They're like, oh, well, the Dodgers came in and they make us clear all the food out. And they bring in their own food and they feed the players all in their own. The Dodgers did all of that. Dodgers did all of that way before the mandatory minor league food was a thing. And people might say, that doesn't give you Shohei Ohtani. I get that. I hear all the arguments. But you know what it does? It builds a little bit of it starts a spark that builds a bigger fire that has what is now burning in the furnace of the Dodgers. And it's all part of it. Is it a small portion for people who say salary cap, all this stuff, it's unfair, other teams? Yeah, they say that's a small portion. For people who have been in those situations and come up through minor league systems and seen how teams are really built, to me, that's a huge, huge part of why they are what they are. And now Kyle Tucker is going to say, I'll take $90 less million to go there, because it's a better fit for me. I like the place. I'm going to get more of my money up front, all that stuff. So it's not a chicken or the egg. It's the first thing that happened was the egg. And then you had a chicken. And now they have tons of chickens. And look at all those chickens.
Look at all those chickens. AJ, don't you want that as a player? Don't you want a team that is going to be so on top of every single detail and take care of its players as if they are a prized commodity, as if they are precious cargo? That, I mean, it only makes sense that if you treat the player well, you're going to make more money. That's just
and the players
how
are making a destination. Players want to come there, right? And by the way, the food thing was because Gabe Kapler was in charge of the minor league, so he also never
was still
ate
playing.
cheese or anything. He never ate cheese or anything, so he had to do that to everyone else. I'll tell the best story. We were when all this stuff started happening. Ozzie Guillen was still our manager. We went into some of the places where they took the cookies and the ice cream and all that away. Ozzie made them bring it all back out, and he's like, "My players need to drink beer and eat ice cream, and I like both. So we're gonna have alcohol and we're gonna have ice cream and snacks. If a guy wants to eat a candy bar and he's 35 years old, let the man eat a candy bar." And so that's how he kind of. That's how we.
I mean, I kind of get that too. I get that too. I think you have the options, though. I mean, not all major league teams are created equally, and what I mean by that is not necessarily the spending or the lack of wanting to spend by owners. But I'll never forget. There's been times when guys have come over and trade, even within the division, and I think I've told this story on here before, but I remember when AJ Pollock came over in a trade from the Arizona Diamondbacks to the Los Angeles Dodgers at spring training in Camelback. So we basically went from Scottsdale to Camelback Ranch. all of the outfielders were lined up in a certain area in the Dodgers clubhouse, and Jock Peterson looked at AJ, who had been in the big leagues for quite some time, obviously played at Notre Dame and then was in the big leagues for some time, and he goes, "Welcome to the big leagues." Because it's just that the Dodgers just treat their players differently and they just go about their business differently. Erik, let me ask you this. As a player, are you for it when you're on one of those teams that don't spend and can't win? I mean, I would imagine that motivation is taken away from you very early in the season. Like, what's the point? What are you playing for?
As a player?
Yeah.
As a player, that's why I think I've gotten eviscerated for saying what I said about the Dodgers being good for baseball, elevating competition. People are like, what is this, high school? Like, you're trying to explain to us about competition. As a player, I promise you, I could care less who was on other teams. Would you go into places and go, holy crap, like the Tigers in 2000, I forget when the Tigers, late 2000s. I'm like, what the heck? Like, they've got Pudge Rodriguez, they got Magglio Ordonez, they had Miggy Cabrera, they had Justin Verlander, Joel Zumaya, Anibal Sanchez. Like, I remember thinking, holy crap, this is a freaking really good team. AJ played against them the whole time. But as a player, you're not sitting there going, we got no chance. If you are, your career is going to be super short. Because I've played with people who said that, like, oh, man, whatever, man. Like, I guess we got no shot. To me, that's tired. As a player, you cannot think that way.
Listen, I played for the Twins. I came up with the Minnesota Twins. The Minnesota Twins at the time, we played in the Metrodome, and the team that was in our division that was so good was the Cleveland Indians. They had Jim Thome, Roberto Alomar. They've been going to the World Series, and I'll never forget, in spring training in 2001, it was my first time when I was going to break camp as a starting catcher. I had a reporter come up to me, and he said, what do you think of this payroll disparity, and you guys are small market and you guys can't compete? And I looked at him and said, who said we can't compete? And I said, we in this clubhouse have never said it. I never looked at it and said we can't compete with these guys, because as a player, you think you're one of the best players in the world. And when you take that field, you can make your team better and you can compete with anyone. Now, we didn't win the division that year. We won it the next bunch of years. The Twins won it for how many ever years in a row for a long time. They made the playoffs. But we never looked at it like, we can't win this division because the big bad Indians are in it. The White Sox are in it with a bigger payroll, right? We're like, we're the Twins. We're really good players. We're a really good team. We believe in each other, and we can figure it out. And we did. So I agree with Kratz. Like, you never as a player say, oh, man, look at what they're doing. Oh, we can't compete. I mean, there's no way we can compete. I was always like, I can compete. Now, I played on some really bad teams in the Braves at the end of my career. But going into the season, I'm like, if things fall right, we might be able to get to a point during the season where, make some trades if we're good, right? You can never look at it and say, and plus, as a player, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. Like the outside world be like, oh, you're on the Pirates or you're on the Twins or this or that. You can't spend money. The Marlins. Screw that. I'm in the big leagues and I'm here to compete. And I'm here to beat the other team no matter who they have. And if I'm on the lesser team, I want to show the bigger team that I can compete with you.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Power of positive thinking. Always a competitor. I love that about you guys. It has something to do with the position as well. All right, let's talk about Jacob Junis, free agent right-hander, in agreement with the Rangers guys on a one-year, $4 million contract. Just a little bit about him. The Cleveland Guardians last season put up a 2.97 ERA, 57 appearances, striking out 55 batters. He only gave up 18 walks in 66 2/3 innings in his first season, working exclusively out of the bullpen. So good move for the Rangers, Erik. And do you think the Rangers have done enough this offseason?
If they've done enough, I don't know. I mean, I think they think their team is internal. I think they expect a lot of the internal upgrades, people staying healthy. Yes, they got Nimmo. I think that's a offensive improvement over what the issue was, or over the fact that they had Simeon. But to me, I think this is a move. This is like knowing Chris Young, knowing how Chris Young's career was. I think he understands and realizes it's freaking tough to hit dingers in Globe Life. So if you can spend $4 million on a guy who is going to give you more value than he's going to give another team somewhere else, to me, this is where the Rangers start climbing back up to that World Series potential. I'm not saying at all is Jacob Junis going to be the guy who's going to go out and anchor this bullpen, make a few spot starts, all the things he's done in his career, all with below average velocity pitching wise and just great, better command. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Chris Young understands what his ballpark, how his ballpark plays offensively, and he knows that his offense is pretty much what he's got in that lineup. The young guys that came up, I forget what they call the little rascals. They showed that they could help. So they have depth in that department. They have Josh Smith. They hope Young is going to be a guy who's going to really take the next step that everybody thinks he's going to at third base. But they have to say, where can we find value? And I think the ballpark, that's why I kind of had an issue with the Royals moving their fences in. If your ballpark plays a certain way, get value out of that. So a guy like Jacob Junis going to the Rangers, good for him for securing a $4 million guarantee, and good for the Rangers for finding a guy who's not going to blow people away, but is going to be able to have success in a ballpark where guys who throw strikes have a lot of success.
AJ, it seems like there's been a lot of turnover in the Rangers bullpen over the course of the last 2 years. I mean, Alex Diaz, Tyler Alexander, Zach Kent, Chris Martin. What do you make of that? Is this a good move to just kind of go along with what Erik was saying with Jacob Junis and the Rangers? And I'll ask you the same question. Have the Rangers done enough?
Done enough for what? Can they compete with the Mariners and the Astros right now? I don't know about that. I mean, you need a lot out of DeGrom. Where's Evaldi at? Who's going to be the other starters in this? Who's going to be in their bullpen? Like you said, there's been so much turnover. Where do they find the offense? Because their offense has been non-existent. Who's their catcher? Because right now it's Higashioka, right? And Jonah Heim's still out there. What do you get out of Josh Young? Who plays first? I mean, Adolis Garcia, he's not there anymore. So there's a lot of questions in the Rangers world. I mean, Nemo's a nice piece, but is it enough? I don't think it was, because this team wasn't very good last year. So, yes, they're going to try some different things, and I love this signing for Junis, and I love this signing for the Rangers because he can pitch late in games for you. He can start games for you. He can be a long guy for you. So for Jacob Junis, yes, this is an awesome place to go have a one-year deal, make some money pitching at Pitchers Park, and get ready to do it again next year.
Good. I love it. All right. From Jacob Junis back to Kyle Tucker, obviously known most of the time for his time with the Houston Astros, now a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Guys, I want to know what you make of this. An anonymous Cubs staffer on Kyle Tucker's departure. And I quote, "I watched him in the clubhouse. He checks his phone more than he checks the scouting report. He's got all the talent in the world, but the motor, it's not there. He's got his bag and good for him. But if you're asking me if I'd want him in a foxhole in Game 7, I'd take a rookie who's hungry over a $60 million guy who looks bored." Now, again, an anonymous staffer, which I don't know, say what you will about that. That could be anybody. It could be bullshit. It could be whatever. I don't think it's fair to have already written the narrative of Kyle Tucker of how he's going to be in Los Angeles. He's obviously an incredibly good player. And the reason I say that is because I do have this from a very good source, somebody that knows Kyle Tucker incredibly well. And I asked him about the narrative and whether or not, that's fair. He said, good guy, not a bad makeup dude, good family, just a very low motor, because he will thrive in LA because he will not be, or he will be in the shadows, just not obsessed with the big leagues. Not everybody is a rah guy. Erik, we'll start with you on this in terms of Kyle Tucker. I asked somebody else that knows him intimately, what he's like. And the personality, okay, maybe warning track dirt. That's okay. You don't have to be a cheerleader. You just have to be a good teammate. So what do you make of this anonymous staffer saying that? And I would imagine that any team that has Kyle Tucker on it is a better team for it.
100%. That player is a very good player. Everyone's going to bring up Anthony Rendon. How did that work out for the Angels? That's where the teams have to make their investigations. They have to figure that out before they give $240 million or however much Anthony Rendon got. I'm not saying he's on that level. I'm saying if he has a low heart rate, maybe that is helpful for him as a player. And you know what? Scouting reports aren't for everybody. You don't have to read scouting reports to be really good. That's okay. Like some guys who don't read scouting reports have the memory of an elephant. I remember 2 years ago, he threw this to me. And you know why that is? Because they don't have a lot of scouting reports jumbled up in his head. Am I afraid that he's not going to play out his 4 years with the Dodgers? Not at all. Zero. I am not afraid of that at all. What I'm afraid of is a freaking clubhouse guy who is with the Cubs saying, oh, yeah, this is what I saw. Say your name. Say your name. Because the fact that now all these clubhouse guys, all these players are going to go into Chicago. They're going to go into spring training. They're going to go into the season and be like, what? Was that the guy? Was he the one? Like to me, that's a sacred area that if you're a clubhouse guy and you're judging me based on the one season I played in Chicago, I have a tough time you saying something about somebody. I really do. Now, should somebody call a clubhouse guy and be like, hey, what kind of tipper is he? What kind of preparation does he do? How is he prepared? Did he follow him to the video room? Did he follow him to the cage? I know there's a lot of guys who will go to the cage and be like, hey, who are we facing today? And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, I just freaking watched every one of their relievers. I watched 3 of the last 4 starts of the starter we're facing, and I'm hitting 9th. I might get 1 or 2 at-bats against them. And one of the stars goes, who are we facing today? What has he got? And did the clubhouse guy see that? Does he know what makes his motor run actually? Or was he in the clubhouse and like, I want to relax. I'm going to see what's on my phone. That's okay. That's okay. It doesn't make him not a good player.
No doubt. I mean, AJ, not everyone's built the same way. Not everyone preps the same way. Not everybody is incentivized or motivated the same way.
Agreed. Listen, I wasn't a big scouting report guy at all. I didn't watch a lot of video. I just kind of was like, I didn't watch every reliever before they came into pitch. I'm like, all right, they're bringing in a reliever, a lefty. Let me guess. He has a slider. He's going to throw me at some point. I don't know. I'm facing a right-handed starter that day. Who is it? Okay, well, if they have one pitch that I might need to be worried about, I might be like, okay, when does he throw it so I don't swing at it? But I wasn't a huge scouting report. What? To get your mind mumbled and jumbled with all this stuff, and then you get up there and you're like, oh, I'm frozen. I can't swing because he was supposed to throw me the 1-1 changeup, but instead he threw me a fastball right down the middle. Like, just react. And if that's the way Kyle Tucker goes about it, great. But he hasn't affected him because you know what? When he's healthy, he puts up numbers. He plays. He's great in the outfield. He steals bases for you. Like, what do you want? I mean, and by the way, one thing I hate more than anything, forget anonymous. Put your name on it, okay? Anonymous person in the Cubs organization. Because you know what you want to look? You want to look cool. And you want to look cool, by saying something about somebody who just left your organization for the Dodgers, okay? You want to look cool. You want to be like, we didn't want him anyways because, he looked at his phone too much. Have you been in a clubhouse lately? Have you watched an NFL playoff game? Have you watched an NBA game? Have you watched a hockey game or any sport? When they show the locker room view, every single guy is on their phone. Every one of them. So every guy is on their phone too much? Like, come on. Like, put your name on it. And if you're whatever position you are in the organization, if you felt this way, then why didn't you say it before you signed? Because if you would have re-signed with the Cubs, guess what? You would have been like, he's a great guy. Da-da-da-da-da. He's great because he doesn't look at a lot of scouting reports. Save it. Whoever said this, save it.
Hey, if a club came out and was like, hey, he's not a good tipper, then I'd be like, okay, you know what? That's fine. Like, this guy didn't give me a good tip. All right, you're mad about that. And the other part was the end of the comment where he said, I'd rather have a rookie any day. Mm-hmm. That might be one of the more tired statements in baseball. The guy who's like, I'll take 9 of these players and I'll win. No, you're just going to have a bunch of guys who are going to have a dirty uniform at the end of the day. And the end of the season, they're going to do nice. They're going to be nice. They're not going to be a good team. When you go to the big leagues, You have a small, finite window to win baseball games. For some people's career, it's a year. For AJ's career, it's 19 years. You want to win every single year. You want the best players out there. You do not want a rookie who is not better than Kyle Tucker just because he's ready to go. Give me the baseball. I'm going to run through a wall. You know what you're going to run through a wall and do? You'll hit like 240. Like, I tried my best. I was a 209 hitter. Nobody. I read all the scouting reports. I was not on my phone because I didn't feel like I could do those things to be able to play the little bit that I played in the big leagues. AJ Pierzynski was and still is a better baseball player than I am. Kyle Tucker is still better than any rookie that is getting called up this year. I would have a tough time believing that when he goes to the Dodgers this year, or if he would have come back to the Cubs, that a rookie is going to have a better season than he will. And so I have that. To me, that's a hard thing to hear at the big league level. Do you want guys on your team that play hard, work hard, do everything they can? Absolutely. But Kyle Tucker's still better than them, and that's okay.
I mean, and not for nothing, if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers, or if you're any team and you're about to give a guy a 4-year, $240 million deal, and you're going to pay him $60 million a year, don't you think they've done some fact checking about some character analysis and have done anything to think, you know what, is he going to fit well? The Dodgers don't need Kyle Tucker. The Dodgers wanted Kyle Tucker because it makes them better. But if the Dodgers didn't get Kyle Tucker, they're still going to be fine. So it's just ridiculous to me, this narrative surrounding him. Obviously, he's a coveted player. He doesn't have to be. Not everybody has the personality of a Jazz Chisholm Jr. that wants to be in the spotlight, that wants to, that's an animated guy that goes about things that way.
Right. And not every move that the Dodgers make is gold. They have signed free agents that are turds and have been gone.
Look at Conforto. Conforto last year didn't work out.
Conforto didn't work out.
Didn't work out, right? But that's fine. They don't all work. The thing that just pisses me off is the anonymous. Don't say anonymous. Don't be anonymous. Don't be anonymous. Okay, if you got something to say about a guy, just say it, and then figure it out afterwards. If he wants to fight you, then you fight. But if he doesn't, and maybe then someone can come and defend him. Notice nobody went to Kyle Tucker and asked him how he felt about this anonymous source. Why didn't someone go to Kyle Tucker and ask him how he feels? Because then you don't get a story, and then you don't get the clicks, and then you don't get us talking about it on Foul Territory.
There you have it. There you have it. Let's let Kyle Tucker write his own narrative in Los Angeles instead of some Cubs staffer saying that he'd rather have a rookie in the foxhole. I would not. All right, coming up, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about spreading rumors right after this. All right, let's talk about it. Speaking of the Cubs, I don't think this is from the staffer, but the Chicago Cubs reunion of their curse-breaking 2016 World Series title team had a notable absence. That was Kris Bryant. So the Rockies guys denied that they blocked Kris Bryant from attending the 2016 Cubs reunion. The 2016 National League MVP was not on the stage when Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber, Javier Baez, John Lester, Kyle Hendricks, and several other former Cubs players appeared at Cubs convention on Friday. Now, fans in search for a reason soon found one from a report on radio station 670 The Score, which claimed that Bryant was not allowed to be there by his team. I mean, that seems a little silly. It's not as if the Rockies are doing anything right now. It's not as it's the offseason. What the hell do the Rockies care if Kris Bryant goes back and attends a reunion? What do you make of it, Erik?
No way. I have a hard time believing there is a reason that the Rockies would have said that. I'm going to go false. I don't see what would happen unless the Rockies are having their rock fest, their fan fest, the exact same time, then be like, man, we'd really like for you to be here. But I know it's cool to go to a 10-year reunion of the team that broke the curse and, like, you guys are legends. Like, I have a hard time believing that the Rockies blocked this.
There's no way. Why would they?
I do too. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'll say this, and you know how hard it is for me to say nice things about the Cubs. I saw pictures and videos of how they did their 10-year reunion. I mean, they did it right. Like the way they did this, and the fact that they invited every single person that was a part of it, whether they played 1 game or 100 games for this team, that's the way you do these things. Everyone should be allowed to come there. Everyone should be allowed to play there. Now, listen, when we had our tenure in 2015, I couldn't go because I was still playing. It was in the middle of the season. We didn't get invited to the White Sox Fest, but in the middle of the season, I couldn't go. Right? Cool. No big deal. But they at least called me and asked me and said, hey, you can't come, but do you want to come? And I'm like, well, I can't. Obviously, I'm playing, but I just don't see how this would be a thing. I don't know. I can't believe the Rockies would do this.
I agree. And AJ, Thomas Harding agrees with you. He does a great job covering the Colorado Rockies for MLB.com. I spoke to a Rockies official this morning who emphatically says that a report that the club blocked Kris Bryant from attending a Cubs 2016 World Series reunion isn't true. Patrick Saunders, who covers the Rockies for decades for the Denver Post, regarding those online reports for the Rockies not allowing Kris Bryant to attend Cubs 2016 reunion, I asked Rockies about it. It is not true. So there you have it. Stop spreading rumors. That is not true. He was allowed to go. Now, why he wasn't there, that's another story. But it's not because the Colorado Rockies said that he could not go. All right, let's switch our focus from Kris Bryant to Zack Gallen, guys. The Cubs and Scott Boras have continued talks, apparently, on Zack Gallen from MLB Bruce Levine on 670 The Score. These talks are ongoing. My reporting is the possibility is that it'll be a shorter-term type of deal. Erik, does Zack Gallen make sense for Chicago?
Yes. Push that. We just talked about the rotation. You don't know what you're going to get from some of these guys. And to add Zack Gallen, I am in the camp that his career is more of what you're getting and not what happened last year. Not everybody's free agent platform year goes the way that you want it to go. And Zack Gallen's did not start out very well, and it was a tough hole to dig out of for him. But I'm going to say that what he did in his career is what he would bring to the Cubs. It just sucks that Zack Gallen has to do, a 1-year deal. Hopefully it's over the qualifying offer amount because they'll be giving up a draft pick. But to me, it's something that is, it sucks. But I guess it's the reality of what his market is because we haven't heard much. But again, another Boras client. How have those worked out for the guys? Pretty freaking well.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, not so great. These past couple off seasons, pretty dang good. I would love it if Scott Boras wanted to represent me. AJ, do you agree with that Zack Gallen a nice fit in that rotation? Why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, he'd fit great in a lot of rotations. I mean, Arizona, name a team, he'd fit in pretty much everyone. I mean, maybe not the Dodgers because they have so many, but even he'd look nice in their rotation. I mean, he's a good pitcher. He's a really good pitcher that's had some really good years. He didn't have a great year this year, so teams are a little scared. But yeah, give him a 1 year, one of them opt-outs like Blake Snell did in San Francisco, and then watch him get in the free agency again next year. I think this makes sense for the Cubs, for any team out there that wants a above average major league starter that can teach young kids how to prepare, how to pitch every fifth day, and how to be a big leaguer. Yes. 100%. It's the same thing. Okay. I saw Justin Verlander yesterday. Okay. I talked to him. I said, Justin, what's happening? And he's like, I want to play. I'm just waiting for it to all be figured out. And I said, why? He obviously wants to go to a winning team, but I said, Justin, and he was sitting with some other people that I know, and they said, why wouldn't a young team I'll use Cincinnati because we talked to C. Trent. Why wouldn't they bring him in? I know they say they have starting pitching depth, but for 1 year, $15 million, whatever it is for Justin Verlander, pitched great the last 2 months, by the way, can teach some of these guys that, yes, I know Lodolo and Andrew Abbott and even Hunter Green have some years, but he can teach you how to do this for 15 to 20 years, right? How to prepare, how to get ready. That makes sense to me. So Zack Gallen, who's even more in the prime of his career, makes even more sense to every team.
Yeah, Zack Gallen just seems like a level-headed, good presence in that rotation that can, as you guys mentioned, help the younger guys. But, you kind of just know what you're going to get with Zack Gallen, kind of like a steady Eddie, nice guy every fifth day. All right, coming up here on Foul Territory, much more to come. We're going to be checking in with some BetMGM stuff, talking to the guys about who they're taking. We'll be right back. All right, guys, talking a lot about the Reds today, of course. The Reds' regular season win total is over under 83.5 at -110. AJ, I will start with you. Are we taking the over or the under on Cincinnati Red Legs?
I want to take the over so bad on this. I really want to take the over so much on this. But then I look back and I'm like, gosh, everyone was picking them to win the division and do this and do that last year. And it didn't happen. Yes, they still made the playoffs, but I'm still riding with Tito. I'm still riding with the Reds. I think they're going to be an 84 to 85 win team. So I'll take the over to bet, but they've just broken my heart the last couple of years. It's like, so I'm going over.
What about you, EK?
Over.
Yeah?
I think the Brewers, I think there's just more wins to be had in the National League Central. I get it. I think the Cubs are better. I think they're going to win more games than they did, but I don't think the Brewers are going to win 97. 97's a lot. And I think I will keep saying it until all these dudes are gone. But I think this position player core will take a step forward as a whole. And I think their starting rotation and, the back end of their bullpen is pretty legit too. But I think their starting rotation has been solidified here really in the last year and a half, 2 years, with obviously Hunter Green being healthy. That gives them a guy who is a 1+. I'm not going to put him on an A status yet, but a 1+.
All right. So you mentioned that you don't think they're going to get 97 wins. Is anybody? I mean, is the parity in baseball such now, guys, that there's maybe no team, AJ, that gets 97 wins this year?
Parity? What parity? I thought the Dodgers were going to win 162 games, Alana.
No, I don't think they can win 162. I mean, that would be really good for those
physical
fans.
That'd be some kind of record if they did it. It'd be an awesome record if they could do it. But I mean, it'd be fun to be on that team and win every game. That would be kind of cool. But no, 97. I mean, the Dodgers would be the team you look at and say they could win 97 if everything lines up and it goes right for them. But again, they don't play for the regular season, so they're not pushing guys. If there's a small injury, they're like, take the 10 days. We'll see you in 10 days, right? That's the whole thing for me, is just that I don't know if there's a team that could do it as the Dodgers. Other than that, I don't know who else there could get to 97.
I agree.
I don't
Toronto,
think so.
but their division is so tough. Toronto, there's not a lot of free wins in that division.
That's the other part, is it used to be like an AL Central, NL Central. Could one of those teams get there, just like the Brewers did? But look at who the Brewers had in their division last year. Cardinals weren't trying. They're still not trying. The Pirates are much improved this year. The Cubs are much improved. And some would say they even kind of underachieved last year. So, and the Reds, obviously I'm buying high on the Reds. So NL Central, that's out. AL Central, you look at it, the Tigers are good. The Twin, there's a lot of parity, mediocrity in that division. But besides the Twins, are they tanking? The White Sox want to be better. Are they in the middle of tanking mode? No, they're just kind of in the middle of we're going to try harder mode. So to me, that's where you could see a team maybe winning 97, but I'm saying that just because the Brewers did it last year. And I remember being on the Brewers when we won a bunch of games, and it was to win that division, you do win. You do have a chance to win more because you get to play those cellar dwellers that are in the Central.
Both AJ and Erik taking the over on the Reds' regular season wins of 83.5. Going back to the Reds for a hot second here, Todd Frazier doing a great job at the Reds Fest at BetMGM Poker Tournament over the weekend. Just take a look at some of the footage from the events. Look at this, guys. So, Erik, are you pissed that you weren't able to get to crush the competition? You did not participate in this, I'm assuming?
I was not invited, but that's okay. That's okay, because the biggest thing I'm pissed about, I'm super proud of Todd. I mean, 14th place, that's awesome. But to me, I'm pissed because every time we have an event, Todd shows up for 6 minutes, and then he's got to go to the cheerleading jump shot batting practice competition that his kids all have at the same place. One time, Todd, I want to see you do this 14th place at one of the events that AJ kills. Come on, come hang out with the boys for the whole time, not just Oh, look at my home run derby trophy.
Sounds a little jealous there. AJ, so Todd was there, obviously.
Jealous?
Dan Graves was there. Scott Braun was there. So 14th place finish for Todd. Out of how many people? 15? Like, what are we talking about here?
No, there was a bunch. I think there was like 5. I wasn't there. I was in the Bahamas all weekend.
There were over 600 people.
I was not paying attention.
So
yeah,
what
was
is
like 600 people.
What does 14th place get you? How much did Todd win? Where's he taking us to dinner? Does anyone know?
$500, $1,000? I don't know.
I don't know how much it was. Well, he won it. He won it a few years ago, but he didn't get to keep the cash. So this year he paid his own entry fee and he kept the cash. So I don't know what he won. We'll find out when he comes on the show. Frazier Friday. Tune in and subscribe.
Mark Wiener, our producer, said that we're going to Sizzler. Oh, we're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler. All right. So the semifinals are here. Yes, it was. It was a phenomenal movie. So good job, Todd. We are incredibly proud of you. All right, guys. So I just want to read this real quick before we get to stuff coming up after Shake It Up. The semifinals are here, and whether you're riding on an upset or hoping the favorite dominates, betting with a boost makes every playoff moment even more memorable. Activate the Odds Boost token on any college football playoff game, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, coming right back to Shake It Up. Wow, it's quite the graphic with AJ behind the bar and Michael there in the graphic there for Shake It Up. Okay, so here's the deal. The Peralta situation with the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the Brewers apparently, guys, are continuing to field offers on ace pitcher Freddy Peralta, a free agent after 2026. The Yanks, the Mets, the Dodgers, Giants, and Braves, among many, many interested teams. Peralta, an $8 million salary means anyone can afford him, including the Brewers, but an extension is tougher for small markets. AJ, does Freddy Peralta start the season with the Milwaukee Brewers, or do you see him with another team?
I think he starts the year with the Brewers. And they see how it goes. And if he's tradable, if they're out of it or something, which the Brewers never seem to be, then they trade him. I think this is closer to the Willy Adames situation from a couple years ago where they actually hold on to him and play the year out and then let him leave as a free agent because I don't know. I think it's a little late now. I mean, it can happen. But we're almost to spring training. We're only a couple weeks from spring training now. This is the kind of move that usually happens earlier in the offseason to set other free agent moves in place. So I think, if he gets traded now, it'll happen in the middle of the season.
Erik, he's 29. He's one of only 11 pitchers to make at least 30 starts in each of the last 3 seasons. So the one thing we know about Freddy Peralta is he posts, right? He's a gamer. He's out there every 5th day. He typically takes the ball when he is supposed to. Is he a Brewer next year?
Man, the question is, I'm not even going to go with, I'm just going to go with my gut. Yes, I think he's a Brewer. Because ultimately, I don't think anybody's going to pay what it takes to get him. Because it's going to be more than what Corbin Burns commanded. Corbin Burns was making, I think, twice as much. I think he was making $16 million or $18 million when he was traded to the Orioles at the same time. Devin Williams may actually have been making more than $8 million. I'm not even sure, but I just think the value is, or the ask is going to be too high, so I don't think it's going to get done. And you talk about that stat you said about, how many people have made 30 starts in the last 4 years. You want to know one of those people that did that? Dylan Cease. Go in and look up all of his stats and see where he was going into his free agent year and compare him to Freddy Peralta if you're wondering how much it's going to take to either extend Freddy Peralta or if the Orioles trade for him to re-sign him in the next season. Like, it's just compare those two guys and see which one you would want and you'll have an idea of what it's going to take to extend a guy like that if the team that trades for him wants to extend him.
Yeah, just one of 11 guys to make at least 30 starts over the course of the last 3 seasons. AJ, the Brewers, though, they have a history of trading their top prospects 1 year before free agency. We saw it with Corbin Burns, Devin Williams. Although Peralta, his salary is not crazy, right? I mean, $8 million. It's a viable option for the 3-time defending NL Central champions. Do they continue with the trend and try to move him, or do you think he's, as we mentioned, back next year? But why do you think that's kind of been their page of the playbook, is kind of getting rid of these guys before they hit free agency? They don't want to spend.
They try to reload, right, Alanna, before they lose the players. Now, like I said, this one to me seems more like the Willy Adames situation, where they let him play the whole year out and then they let him walk. Freddie's great in the clubhouse. Everybody loves Freddie. He's always smiling. There's a lot of things to love about Freddy Peralta. And any team that does get him, if it's not the Brewers, will be lucky. But that's why I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's too many moving pieces and too many of the free agent guys are now gone. Right now, if there's a team out there, I'll use the Mets as an example, that think they need one more starting pitcher. Zack Gallen ain't it. Maybe you make this trade for Freddy Peralta because he's still cheap, and the Mets are a team that can get him there for a year, figure out if they like him, and then possibly re-sign him down the road. So I just believe that unless it's something big like that, he's going to be in Milwaukee when the year starts and possibly maybe get traded, but the Brewers are never out of it. So maybe they keep him all year and let him walk like they did with Adames.
And that's just it, right? The Brewers are never out of it. There's no reason to say that they wouldn't be able to win the NL Central again. So what would be the benefit to the Brewers, Erik, to get rid of Peralta? I mean, I think he's more of an addition than a subtraction.
I mean, obviously they have to thread that window of wanting to continue to win. And the part that I really like about what the Brewers have done is they take less lottery tickets when they're doing these trades. They go after teams lower levels, longer arbitration or controllable players that they feel like they can find value in. Joey Ortiz, when they traded for him, third baseman, played a lot of shortstop. Does that mean he was the best shortstop in the game? Absolutely not. But they had somebody they could plug right in at third base. They got DL Hall. That's where, a lot of high upside, hasn't been able to stay healthy. I think the Brewers, if they trade Freddie P, I have a hard time believing it's not going to be for somebody who they look at and they say, yes, we see he strikes out a lot if he's a hitter, but he's going to hit some dingers for us and we need that slug. I think about like a Spencer Jones from the Yankees. Do they feel like he plugs in to a team that steals a lot of bases? Everybody talks about, oh man, he strikes out 33% of the time. He's also a 20-plus stolen base kind of guy. I think he actually had 30-plus in the minor leagues. I'd have to look at that. But, do they find that value and say, okay, we can figure out who's going to start game one for us in the playoffs? Like, they got Big Woo, but you don't know what you're going to get. Still coming off of that major shoulder surgery and looked great last year, but then got hurt and wasn't able to pitch in the playoffs. So does this hurt their depth? Do they just want to keep making the playoffs, or do they want to be able to make the playoffs and win a World Series? And I think if that's the case, I don't think they can do it without Freddie P. Can they make the playoffs without always getting rid of Josh Hader, then Devin Williams, then Corbin Burns, now Freddie P? Like, are they going to continue that and still not win the World Series? At some point, you're like, we got to go all in, even if it means a step back next year to win the World Series, because that's what Brewers fans really want.
Well, of course, but some folks say, at the beginning of every season, the goal is to win the World Series. I mean, every club, all 30, is going to say that. Do they really mean it, though? That's another thing entirely. I mean, I think the Brewers will have an opportunity to get to the postseason, as they've done pretty much every year in the last 10 years. But you keep trading your best players away. It's kind of hard to do that. All right, coming up, we are going to slap hands. Kenley Jansen was supposed to join us, but he got caught up throwing his side session, his bullpen, so he'll join us another day. We'll be right back with Slap Hands after this. All All right. Ryan Pressly, guys, has announced his retirement. He's going to work for the Twins. They also hired Michael A. Taylor, another recent retiree who should easily relate to the current Twins. Of course, just played there. Pressly was one of the most clutch closers in recent times. It's never easy, I would imagine, to say you're hanging up your cleats, guys. But just what you'll remember, Erik, about Ryan Pressly's career.
I hit a dinger off of him. That's all I remember about his career. No, like this was a guy that you would look at and you'd go, if it's the postseason, game's over. Like it was rarely like a panic mode when he was in the game in the offseason. It was like, here comes that slider curveball thing that'll go straight down, and he'll throw the one that goes a little bit farther away from a righty. And he was unapologetic about throwing it and seemed very low key, seemed very under control. He made closing look easy at times, and you can't win a World Series without a really good closer. And he did it really well for a long time.
What do you think about him, AJ? Obviously, a steady presence on the mound, a guy that knows what to do in those big moments. Decided that he's done with the game, but only as a player.
Yeah, he's a perfect guy to hire as a coach to help young guys, especially in bullpens, become relievers. He went from a kind of a middle guy to a late inning reliever that won World Series, and he was incredible in the postseason. He kind of fell into the line of cutters and curveballs. That's like one of the combos that teams really like now, cutters and curveballs. Mark Melanson, cutters and curveballs, right? And if you're a closer and you can throw a cutter and then back it up with a curveball, it's a great weapon. And Ryan Pressly, congrats on a great career, and we'll see you in Minnesota.
Yeah, no doubt. Congratulations. Phenomenal career for him. Good for you. Appreciate being able to watch you. All right. Coming up next, guys, Dodgers territory with myself and Clint Pasillas, and then you can join Baseball America's JJ Cooper and the team for Hot Sheet at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget, Fair Territory tomorrow. Ken Rosenthal will be on. Scott Braun will be back. And it is time now for Kratz Hats.
I mean, obviously. I don't ever get to wear my Rockies hat, but Alanna Rizzo's on the show, so.
That doesn't make any sense.
What?
That doesn't make any sense. I'm not a Rockies fan.
You're totally a Colorado fan. Like, I get it.
I'm a Denver Broncos fan, yes, but I'm not a Colorado Rockies fan.
You're a Colorado Rockies fan. It's okay. Purple is a nice color, and
nice.
You're a fan of the Rockies because you're a Dodgers fan, and they get to beat the Dodgers all the time. I mean, they get to lose to the Dodgers all the time, and so the Dodgers will win 162 games.
I will say this about the Rockies. I do like the regime change. I think Walker Montfort's going to do some good things. I also like the fact that they're going outside of the organization and bringing some outside perspective in. And honestly, with the way that things went last year, there's nowhere to go but up for the Rock Show. Good on them.
Careful.
Oh, come on.
The White Sox said the same thing. Careful.
Nowhere to go but up. You guys have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you having me tag along. Scott Braun is back. Don't forget, guys, at 3 p.m. it is Dodgers territory with myself and Clint Pasillas. These two will be back with you tomorrow. Catch you later.